signed off at the end of the day with a couple things to do, and I was going to do them the next day, and then this fell into my lap. This is a stove, well, oven, with a cracked, broken glass top, which I really don't care about. What I want is the working oven, which I can now use for powder coating. Got myself a free powder coating oven. Yay! And I got a little bit of insulation, so for the larger parts, I'm going to build a box out of basically foil and insulation, so I can almost double the size of the oven, so I can do bigger parts in there as well, but smaller parts. Like I said, the oven works, so powder coating of parts, and it was free. And instead of working on my car, I got to hang out with my buddy for a day because we had to wait for this guy to get done with work, which we were not aware of. So we drove up a couple hours early. That's all right. Got to hang out, have a few beer, got a free oven, but now it's got to get back to work on the car. So as you can see, the stove is put away now. Well, it's in a spot anyway where it's going to be put. Let's get this even here. So now getting back to the car, pulled the old hinges out of their box. They're tagged right and left because I wanted to make sure that I didn't deform this while I was pulling it out, between grinding, heating, bending, putting it in a vise, whatever, welding that up there. That actually turned out okay. So anyway, pull the hinges out, put the bolt in, and make sure it's got freedom of movement. Hinge moves freely, goes up and down. Clearly these need to be cleaned up. I might throw these in the blaster while I got them out, just for giggles. But so yeah, I know this fits at this width, so I don't need to like stretch it out wider. I didn't compress it. I didn't move it about in any way that would be detrimental and restrict movement. So I can get on with attaching this to all these other little pieces. I still got to weld. I got to weld that together and fit that to do the other side. But then these will go in. I know that the hinges will go. At least that hinge will go. So I'm gonna blast that. And got some holes drilled, put that in place, measured up and back. So the part that's in between where that attaches, where the support is, that's going to get, because I can't get in from underneath with a welder. Whereas on the piece itself, I've got an outside of where that's going to go. So those are going to get drilled up from underneath. Then I'll do the edge. Everything will be supported. Before I put that in though, I should really take care of this while I got better access to it here. So, and while I'm test fitting things, I pulled the old dashboard out. Looks like it's going to fit with this pretty well where it is. So I don't need to worry about reshaping any of this to fit the dash. So next up, repair the hole where the radio antenna is, and there's that little bit of frame underneath it. Since I need to repair this and the underneath there, you can see that I've actually put the door on. The purpose for that is to make sure that this is flush, because if I got to reshape the cowl, I don't want to put this in and especially fix the bracket underneath and then realize that, oh geez, that's in the wrong spot. I want to fix it with this in, with the gaps. I know the gaps aren't going to be perfect here because, you know, we're on a table, not on the suspension. But they're a lot better than what they were. Let it be said that I do not like welding through weld-through primer, but we got that attached with some plug welds and a little bit sealing welds along the edges. So yeah, the start. And we got it tacked in. That's in. I still got to do the top, obviously. And I'm going to weld it from the inside. I just tacked it in place for fit. It's kind of tough to show you the welding in process, but here we go. Probably won't work, but I'm going to try it. So there's my copper. Just throw it on here. Trying to do it with one hand. There we go. I'm going to put another piece of duct tape underneath. Okay, we're going to see how this works. This will melt the duct tape, but that's known. That is a known quantity. The duct tape will melt. But it's also expected. So what I do is I got about, what, half an inch. Put it right up there. And just I had to do a little bit of backfilling in there because the copper is not tight, so you get a little bit of a gap and it'll burn through easily. It actually doesn't look too terribly bad. Yeah, so that's how I weld sheet metal on this side. See, that's why it burned through a little bit, because the duct tape started to melt. That's not too bad, but yeah, see how gooey it gets? So what you're gonna have to do is clean that with acetone. Do not, under any circumstances, do not clean with brake cleaner. Never weld anything you cleaned with brake cleaner. Okay, so I have a little hole right there. You can see the pinhole. So I'll go back and touch that up. Do not clean with brake cleaner, because what happens with brake cleaner is as soon as welding temperatures hit the active chemical in brake cleaner, it turns into phosgene gas. For those who don't know, phosgene is a US military grade chemical weapon. You do not want to be inhaling that stuff. So as you can see, my skills as a welder are, by necessity, far surpassed by my skills as a grinder. Careful not to overgrind. You always want to leave a little bit of a ridge there, otherwise you're starting to take the metal away. So that's where we're at. And we've cut out the second side. This is really, really bad. It's not rusty, but it's cracked from the, and that was really bad. So I keep the same hinges because the old hinge was slightly, or the hinge on the parts car, or on the parts car, they were pretty locked in and beat up and a little narrower. Oh, and just if you're curious, that little hole here, these are the raw welds. This hasn't been dressed yet. This is the back side, it's the penetration. You can see there were two little pinholes, which I got from this side there and there. That just took out the pinholes. But yeah, that's the penetration. So my tack weld, because when I do sheet metal to keep it from warping, I do multiple tacks. So that's just to show that it did in fact penetrate. That's a solid piece. Right. So way better welds with the new welder. I know, don't blame the equipment, but in this case, I'm thanking the equipment because it is better. That's the welder, by the way. Lincoln. Oh, and these are my settings for sheet metal. I've only got 4 heat settings. So those of you who say, oh, just drop the heat and solid weld, can't do that when you've only got 4 settings on a cheapy welder. Well, not cheapy, not like the last one, but nonetheless, are limited settings. But you do have to make sure that you get the penetration. So the reinforcements for this piece here were taken out of, this came off of the old, this came off of the parts car actually, or was it off the old front end? That is this piece here, where the, on this side, the driver's side, the brake master cylinder goes. That side's just got a cover plate. And if you look at the underside of them, it's reinforced. And these reinforcements are pretty much perfect to cut out with this end here. Because I'm cutting, I've discovered as I'm getting older that my wife gets more and more annoyed if I can't hear her, and so happy wife, happy life. Let's keep her happy. I cut it 1 inch off the thing. Marked it, cut it. Try and set it up so the sparks go away from myself when I'm cutting with the cutting wheel, where possible. The reason I'm still using this box, even though this is broken on it, is because on the other box, the hinges, it just seemed to be bent in, crushed in. It wasn't quite the right shape, so I'm going to use the original boxes. I'm going to have to obviously drill these out to take this off. So I'll do that next. I'm sorry I notched the camera a little bit. Let's make everyone seasick. Woo! Sorry, I couldn't resist. So next, this. So if you're anything like me, you keep a ton of dunnage around. This is 2x6. The reason I'm using that is because, as you can see, the shape of this is weird, right? So if I put this on like the flat drill press table, it's going to wobble around. If I lay it on a piece of dunnage, and what I'll do is I'll set it up so that lip there kind of hooks it. Put it under here. I've got a stable platform, right? And I have backing behind the drill, behind the bit. So when the bit goes through, it's got something to bite into. It's less likely to spin stuff around. It also gives me an anchor point so that doesn't spin around. So I'm going to be using the dunnage here. Don't really need, with a drill press, the ear stuff, but I do need the eyes. Again, you don't want black boogers, you don't want black lungs, you don't want a black eye because your wife can't hear you, and you don't want blackness forever. So wear all your PPE. Like I say, there's not a lot of noise on this drill press. It's pretty quiet. But gloves and eyeballs, I'm always careful with. And let's face it, the metal's sharp. I mean, you just touch that without gloves on, you're just gonna, why bleed when you don't have to bleed? If you're gonna bleed, at least make it for a good reason, right? Chicks dig scars, but they don't dig stupidity. So if you're gonna get a scar, get it heroically, don't get it stupidly. This is set on the lowest possible RPMs. You can adjust your RPMs on your drill press. Inside of here, I'll bring it around here so you can see it. You can see there how to set the pulleys up. Right now I got it set for 620 RPMs. It'll go up to 3100. That's just moving the belt from one pulley to another. So that's, I always set that on the lowest possible RPMs. I apologize for the motion sickness with the camera. And actually, it's not a bad idea to put a little bit of oil on this as well, which I'm only doing 4 drills here, so I'm not too worried about it. If I was doing like 15 or 20 drills, yeah, I would absolutely not do this without oil. Put this in here. I can see there's a catch right at this hole. You see it there? And then at the very bottom. So all I'm going to do, I can grind it back to normal, but in the meantime, I'm just going to take a hammer and a cat's paw. And this is the sort of thing you're going to see a lot. Like, everything doesn't always work perfect. Oh yeah, this is the way you do it. This is the way you do it. Well, it is the way you do it. But sometimes force will out, right? All I'm going to do is I'm literally going to, actually, there. Don't need a place. Straight, right? Metal responds well to force. Oops, sorry.